Namaste. Welcome to our 45th talk on the Gita. We are still in the 8th chapter. We're going to be starting at the 16th verse. This is the section called the Yoga of Imperishable Brahman. The worlds up to Brahma's realm are subject to rebirth's return. Now, Brahma projects and guides only the lower worlds. First of all, our gross material world, and then a couple of levels or two or three in the astral world. And we die, and we go up to the very next level into the lowest astral world, and we are there for a while, and then we, in a sense, die from there, and we come back down here and are born. So you see, all the way up to all the highest worlds, it's still the realm of mritya, of death. And we have no abiding place, in a sense. We are born and we die, and we're born and we die. Now, it's sort of like this, and then a little higher each time, but still it's getting that body taken away from us, getting that realm in which we've been functioning. Sometimes you go to a higher world, you stay there for 10,000 years. Well, you get so acclimatized to it, you don't even know how to remember the world down here. And then one day, suddenly, the process starts, and then you remember, oh no, oh yes, and down you go again. So there's no stability anywhere. There's no place. Oh, in every place in a silly, foolish way, we say, okay, this is my home. This is where I am. Or even we decide, I'm going to stay here. I'm not going to let anybody kick me out of this. Well, there's a cosmic law, and nobody can defy it. So it's coming and going and coming and going and coming and going without any interruption. And this gets very wearisome, you see. It's one of the reasons why, mercifully, we're born. People like myself who don't believe in reincarnation will say, well, if I've lived before, why don't I remember it? That's because it's God's mercy that we don't have like 200,000 years of memory behind us and all the conditionings and all the reactions we have when we do have those memories. So the slate gets wiped and we're blank, and we come in blank and go on from there. That indeed, working up to kind of being fully in control of that body, that's a great process. I just think we'll have to keep doing it over again. Yes. So, clear up to Brahma's realm, it's birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. But for him who attains to me, there is no more rebirth. They're making this a little simpler, or Krishna is, because there are tons of worlds beyond Brahma's world where you also keep going up and down, up and down. And so only at the top, at the very top, when in a sense you step off the ladder of evolution, then there's no pulling back against our will. So if you want to get rid of rebirth, you can't just work on this plane. You can't just work on your external behavior in this material world, because you have karma in all those other worlds. What goes to those other, while you're still here right now, and we have to work on it, how do we do it? only by going into the higher levels of our minds or our bodies, because all of our astral bodies are right here inside this, and inside those astral bodies are the causal bodies. And inside the causal bodies, that's the self, the true consciousness. It's looking down a very, very long hallway with many doors on either side. So the only way then to not be subject to this rebirth and return is to get into all those worlds and purify the karmas of all those worlds. Remove all the obstacles. In a sense, clean yourself up, absolutely. Then you can pass on. And there's only one way to do it, not by good deeds, not by good positive thoughts or aspirations or prayer or serving God, however that would be. It's by meditation only, by sadhana alone. The yogi alone will go even up beyond 2 or 3 levels from where we are now, much less to the top. Therefore, again, the message of the Gita: be a yogi. And as can be seen in that book, be a Soham yogi. They know the true day and night because, see, we just have our little 24-hour day. So much light, so much dark. That's it. But that's a dream day. They know the true day and night. This is the 17th verse. Who know Brahma's day, 1,000 yugas long, and Brahma's night, 1,000 yugas long. See, everything has to have duality. So if something lasts a certain period of time, then the mirror image of it has to last an equal amount of time. That's why there's this situation. Now, a yuga, what does it mean by a yuga? Because people have read autobiography of a yogi and maybe they've seen the book, the so-called Holy Science. They think of it in that little limited idea of the 24,000 year cycle. But the truth is that little cycle is basically negligible and it doesn't mean much of anything. And I know people say, isn't it wonderful? We're not in the Kali Yuga anymore. We're in the Dwapara Yuga. The difference is so slight, it doesn't matter. If you're fooling around and you're not being a yogi, you just might as well be back 2,000 or 3,000 years because you're going to get nowhere now. You didn't get anywhere then. So he's talking about the universal cycle of yugas. And this encompasses tremendous ages. And the whole there's just one of these yugas. And I'm not going to go into numbers because people like numbers because it makes them think, now I understand it. And they don't at all. So why kid ourselves? So there is this little cycle of yuga, but there is the greater yuga cycle that is 1,000 times longer because it's 1,000 times bigger than what we're in. And that is Brahma's day. 1,000 yugas long, and Brahma's night, 1,000 yugas long. As much time in manifestation as in manifestation. At the approach of Brahma's day, all manifest things come forth from the unmanifest, because at that time they withdrawn completely in this great pralaya and they're asleep. Whether they dream or not, I don't know, but they are asleep. And then they're brought out and they wake up. And if they've had much evolution, they say, oh, no, not again. And then they'll remember they said that a couple of thousand or more times. So at the approach of Brahma's day, all manifested things come forth from the unmanifest and then return to that at Brahma's night. A whole day at school, then a whole day asleep, or a night asleep, as long as a day. Helpless, that's the thing that galls us. Because innately we know we're to be the masters of everything. We're to control everything about our life. So we don't like it when we hear, though it's the truth, helpless, the same host of beings being born again and again, merge at the approach of the night and emerge at the dawn of day. I think I mentioned the joke, excuse me, I want to make a mark, about the little boy who was so anxious to go to school. Even by the time he was 3, he wanted to go to school. He was so much anticipating it and liking it, the idea. Watched other people go to school, but he didn't. And so finally, he went to school. He came home after the first day, and his mother said, "How did you like school?" And he was glum. He wasn't particularly in a happy state. And she said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, school was all right, but I've got to go again tomorrow." So monotony, this grips us, and it's over and over again. But, now this is good, but there exists higher than the unmanifested. Now this doesn't mean the unmanifested absent. It means the unmanifested, unobjective part of manifestation. It's contradictory, I know, but as I've said, if you can't think in two opposite ways at once, you'll never get a grasp of Sanatana Dharma. But there exists higher than the unmanifested another unmanifested eternal, which does not perish when all things perish. First of all, the absolute unmanifested, who of course is Brahman. But then there is the level of unmanifestation where we're there also, and we're conscious, and we're aware of our evolution. And we don't die from that level, we just go a little higher. So in a sense, we keep being reborn, but we never re-die. This unmanifest, declared to be the imperishable, which is called the supreme goal. In other words, once you've got there, you don't have to go anywhere else. You now encompass infinity. It's not so horrible as like going to a perfect world where everything is beautiful and everything is nice and you're stuck there. That would be hell. No, this is where you're beyond all that. So there can't be coming or going. So you have no feeling of insecurity or danger of losing something. This unmanifest is declared to be the imperishable, which is called the supreme goal, attaining which I return not. This is my supreme abode. For we're living in God, so it's a supreme abode and it's a supreme being at the same time. This is the supreme being attained by one pointed devotion alone. We might as well stop at that point to talk about it. One pointed devotion, no other desire, no other aspiration, no other ambition. Moksha and moksha alone. I think I've mentioned the Zen Buddhist story about the very devoted Zen practitioner. Actually, was a Zen monk, and he was offered kind of a little hut cottage to live in and do his meditation. So he went in and he found on the wall a large picture of Amitabha Buddha. I don't want to take up your time on this, but Amitism or Amida Buddhism, which by the way is 2/3 of the Buddhists of the world, and most people have never even heard of Amitabha Buddha because all we're given in relation to Buddhism is a filtering out of everything that these supposed philosophers or teachers, even of religion classes, don't like, and don't want us to know about. But 2/3, just say 2/3 of the world are Amida Buddhists, not Zen Buddhists and not this and that Buddhists, Amida Buddhists. Now, Amida is a great Buddha, of course, because Gautama Buddha is only one among millions of Buddhas. And Amida Buddha, by his realization as a true Buddha, he could create worlds. And so he created a very perfect world, but it's a sadhana world. It's a sadhana loka. And its whole purpose is meditation. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's attractive. They call it the Sukhavati, the world of happiness, in the sense of perfect ease and so on. And he created this world. And in this world, there dwell great illuminated beings that have gone beyond the need for rebirth or relative existence. But instead of going in and merging in with the absolute formless, they have remained here to help other people. So these great beings are in that world. And whoever goes to that world will not have to be reborn in this world, but will remain in that world being taught, being guided by those people, which means meditation basically, until they arise to go to higher and higher lokas. And of course, the Amitas describe the world. It's very attractive. It's done so that people want to go there. And so, anyway, the Zen monk found that big picture of Amida Buddha there. And so he looked at it and said, Amida Buddha, there is room for both of us in this little hut. And you can stay here. But don't think that I'm going to come to your world. Meaning, I want to go way beyond your world. And of course, that's what Amida Buddha really wants. So, no offense was taken, obviously. But this is about saying nothing, and it happens, you see. Sorry, I'm thinking two or three things at a time. It's not easy to express. It says in the Shastras that when you come to a certain point, everything that can be wanted, everything that can be delighted in, everything that can be enjoyed, it comes to you. And you have to be able to say no and mean it and not be attracted by it. That's not like I want it, but oh no, I know it's bad for me. No. In other words, there's no longer any interest in that. That's real one-pointed devotion. In other words, the 49ers, they used to, when they had their covered wagons, they would paint on the side, California or bust. Well, it's moksha or bust. Perfect realization or bust. That's the devotion. Again, devotion is dedication. not emotion, not feeling love and all this thing. You may wonder, why do you see love in that cynical way? Humans don't have the ability to really love because you can't love what you don't know. And do human beings really know each other? No. Okay. Attained by one pointed devotion alone, within which, meaning the Supreme Being, all beings do dwell, by which all this is pervaded. In other words, the Absolute isn't outside us. The Absolute is the outside and the inside of us, and it pervades us, and therefore is right there at any time. So the people that go into meditation go, what are they trying to do? The Absolute's right there. They wouldn't be able to get away from the Absolute. So they're floating in it. You see, there was a great saint who uh, talked about the people who say, well, where is this Brahman or where is this God and so on. And he said, I laugh to see fish thirsty in water. Or as has also been said, if you could talk to a fish about water, they say, what's this water you're talking about? I don't see this water. I mean, where is it? Okay, then show it to me. Well, that's what they're in. So you and I are pervaded by the real. That God that people talk about that can get angry, get pleased, or love you doesn't exist. Luckily for you and I, only that pure truth exists. And we can become conscious of it because we don't need to rise to it. We don't need to go to it. You're there now. That's why when you sit for meditation, you close your eyes, you're there, but you're not aware of it. So you just sit at peace and let yourself become aware. And I don't mean you sit there in blank silence. Of course, you're doing soham japa, but let's pass on. Now I shall tell you of the times in which the yogis, departing at the time of death, return or do not return. In other words, the minute you go out, it's understood whether you're coming back or not coming back. Anandamayi Ma used to talk about a one-way ticket or a return trip ticket. I heard her talk about that the very first time I met her. I was one of the people running into her room to get a glimpse of her, and these two young men were talking to her, and she said, you've got to decide you want a return trip ticket, you got to one trip. And then she explained it. It was lost on me, of course, because it was Bengali, and Bengali was some kind person explained to me the basic idea. So we all have to depart, but there's two kinds of departures: the one-way ticket and the return trip ticket. So I'll read this, then we'll talk about it. Fire, light, daytime, the bright lunar fortnight, the 6 months of the sun's north path. You see, the sun literally, well, I don't say literally, the way we see it, because our rotation is our Earth movement, appears to go north and then appears to go south, as if it's moving in kind of an ellipse, which it isn't and is both at the same time. All right? Fire, in other words, light. You see, fire, light, daytime, the bright lunar fortnight. Well, it's what's pervaded by light. Departing then, the Brahman knowers go to Brahman. In other words, if you are immersed in that which is light, there isn't even a shadow there. There's not an atom, not a hint of any diminishment from the perfect light. Then you go to Brahman. Smoke, nighttime, the dark fortnight, the 6 months of the sun's south path, thereby attaining the lunar light, which is only a reflection of the sun, you see, the yogi returns again. In other words, anything that isn't absolutely of the light, even if it reflects some light, even if it's made visible by some light, if it's not that which is all light, then it is in a sense dark. And we return again. Now, there's some yogic symbolism here. I don't want to go into it too deeply because, first of all, it usually isn't very valuable, even when it's true. But think of the end of the spine, the bottom of the spine, as the south, and the top as the north. And think of the solar as the solar energies of life, which move up and down the spine. And it always finds kind of a major abode because it's vast. So the kind of core of it, the big chunk of it, can exist at any point along the spine or be centered there, oriented there. These words make sense and don't make sense because we're talking about something very, very high and very beyond our ordinary experience. But anyway, accordingly, the balls of Bengal say, what station are you in? Think of it as the chakras in the spine. And don't think of it as 7 chakras. I assure you, there are 1,008 chakras just in the lesser counting. So it's how far north you are is to how far light you are. And you see, the higher you get there, the lesser time will you slip down, and eventually you don't slip down and you just steadily go on up. So truly, these two light and dark paths, the world thinks to be eternal. And there are people like that. There are schools of thought in India. They don't believe you ever get away from rebirth. They believe you're going to be born over and over and over again in the human body forever. But you can get higher and higher in consciousness. Now, of course, in the West, we have the eternal progression people. Oh, there's no end to it all. That's sort of yes and no. So anyway, but even in India, they have that idea. They don't have the idea of moksha in the sense of even freedom from rebirth. So the world thinks those are eternal. You can't get away from them. They're it. You've got to just adjust to it. I remember being lectured in a government office once by one of these people who was, by the way, very grouchy, of course, who sat there and looked at me and griped about the idea of Advaita Vedanta and so on. All right, anyway, they're the two light and dark paths. By one, he goes to non-return, by the other, he returns again. In other words, when you think of it, the great sages of India have just had one message: get out of here and don't come back. No yogi who knows these two paths, doesn't just hear about them, but he's had some experience, is confused. Therefore, at all times, be steadfast in yoga. Whatever meritorious fruit is declared to accrue from study or recitation of the Vedas, sacrifice, the fire rituals, tapasya, even austerities, and alms giving, good and merciful deeds. Beyond all these goes the yogi who knows the two paths and he attains to the supreme primeval abode. And I have now spoken 50% over the 20-minute desired limit. So I will at least free you to go back to some other abode than just looking at and hearing some yogi who doesn't have enough sense to look at the clock and know how to shut up. Namaste, namaste.